Hello and welcome to PDX Garden Home. It's fall here. We're full on fall, sitting here in October, so any last minute hope that I might have some a second summer is pretty much gone at this point. And I'm working on another round of broccoli harvesting. I think the last time that I did a major harvest was end of August, beginning of September. We've done a little bit of harvesting here and there since then, but we're gonna have a much bigger volume today than we've had, because I've just been letting it go. And this is the kind of season for broccoli. It's nice and cool, and the days are kind of in the 50s and 60s, and the evenings are down to the 40s and 50s, and the broccoli's sprouting well under those conditions. And of course, with fall, the rest of the garden goes through its changes, and so we've taken out a lot of the summer crops and started cleaning out some of the beds. And as you'll see in the coming weeks, we're going to be clearing beds and refurbishing them with more compost for next year. So yeah, fall's not a bad season for gardening. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's over now, summer's over, we're going to stop. I don't stop. We just keep going. It's just a different season for gardening. And I quite like it. Once I get past the fact that the season's changed and I'm ready for fall, I actually like this cooler weather and the crops and things that we can do out here. So join me in the coming segments here, and we'll show you around what we're up to. Coming up on this episode, we're going to be harvesting leeks. It's a modest crop this year, but we have a few to harvest, and I'm going to show you what we did and how we go about harvesting it. Then we're going to move over to looking at our compost. We've got some big compost bins. We get a lot of garden scraps and brush and leaves and branches and things that we compost down. And now that it's fall, it's time to move some of that over into our open garden beds for next year. And finally, we're going to revisit washing our pots and trays. I figured out a different way to do it, and I want to share that with you in this episode. Okay, well, let's get started. Well, here I have my meager leek patch. Leeks are a full season crop. We plant them. I actually start by planting them like in January or February in the greenhouse in little cell trays, and then we put them out into the beds, and then it takes the whole growing season before they're usually ready to harvest. At least that's how I've been doing it. One of the challenges that I've had with it, though, is that my timing on preparing beds have been off, because what often happens is that, starting now and into the spring, it usually takes us all the way from, we're now in October, and it often takes us all the way from October into, say, March to kind of clear beds and then put new compost on them to get all the beds. And so what's happened over here, and it happened to me a couple times in a row, is I started to get things like leeks and things planted out, and then but didn't have my compost in the bed yet. So then I came in and composted over the top, and so I lost a lot of what I had planted out. And so that was just kind of, I know it sounds totally silly, but it's just kind of poor planning on my part in terms of how we did it. So these actually survived. So we composted over the top, and they still kind of popped their way through and survived. And so this is my leek harvest. But had everything survived, we probably would have had a whole bed full of leeks. There were some others that I also pulled out early on because I got confused. That's another thing that I don't do real professionally, is I don't label real well. So I pulled some things out thinking they were onions, and then later realized, oh, these are baby leeks. So back in, I would say it was in July or August, I pulled out leeks that were like a 1/4 inch thick, and they were edible, but they're not like the leeks that you would expect that we're going to see here. So with these leeks, I mean, I know this one for sure is ready because it's got escape on it. So that's actually what alerted me to, oh yeah, we need to come over here and deal with these leeks. So, and they're pretty close together. That's probably because these were in the same cell tray when they first came out. So I'm gonna see if I can just wiggle it out. If I can't, I'll stick my knife down in there, but yeah, I don't want to lose the stem, so I'm gonna stick my knife down in here and kind of soften up the area a little bit. Okay, let's see if that, there we go, okay. These are actually kind of grown together. So this is the size, this is about the size that you normally would expect for a leek. This is a little bit smaller, but certainly still edible. And you'll notice on the leek, there's not a really long white part here, and that's professional leek growers. They will cover more of it with dirt so that they get a longer white part. I didn't come back and do that, so I've got a short white part here. Just drop that in my wheelbarrow there. I'm just pulling as much of the dirt clumps as I can off here, and then I'll clean it up more by the harvesting sink area later. Smells good. You can't smell it on the video there, but it does smell good there. Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of root. Probably because of the fact that I reburied it early in its life. Got down in there. This one here, I mean, I don't know if these will grow bigger at this point between now and the end of the year, but leeks are relatively cold hardy, so I'll just go ahead and leave it in, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, they're not. I'll leave that one too, and I'll take this one here. Well, I said I was going to leave that one, but pulling this one up ultimately pulled that one up, so I'll go ahead and take them both. I think I'm going to experiment by leaving the rest of these in. They theoretically should get bigger, and we'll see if between now and end of the year if they actually do get bigger. Maybe I can remember to put that in a future video so you can follow along and see. I mean, they've been in here since March, so they theoretically should already be big enough. And so I don't know if whatever's caused them not to get big basically persists, and then this is just as big as they're going to get, or if leaving them in the ground longer might actually let them get bigger. We'll experiment. We'll see. All right. I'll see you all in the next segment. Well, I'm moving compost out into some of our beds now. It's something I start doing in the fall. We start clearing our beds, and between the fall and early or late winter, we just work on it bed by bed, clearing the beds and then putting new layers of compost down on the beds. I mostly follow kind of the no-dig philosophy of not tilling the garden beds, but instead just layering down new layers of compost every year. And historically, we haven't really had enough of our own compost to make a huge impact in that whole process. But this last year, we generated a lot, and this pile that we have here came from having trimmed about 80 foot worth of hedge. We had a service that came in and trimmed the hedge for us, and then they had a big wood chipper, and then they chipped it all up, and I just had them store it here for us. And that composted down really nicely. And this is essentially the compost that's left from that. Maybe some other stuff we've thrown in there along the way, but mostly it came from that. And so when that bed started, it was as tall as this big bed here. And so the goal with this project here is to clear this bin out, put it into our garden beds, and then we'll kind of move these over so they can decompose easier, turn them a little bit and they can decompose more. So we've got 3 bins here that are in different stages of decomposition, but our newest bin is overflowing, so we kind of have to start moving things around. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna get to it right here. Let me shovel this up and then I'll show you the bed we're gonna put it into. Get some bigger pieces like this that may not be likely to compost quickly, so I'll throw them off to the side and we throw those in the city compost essentially. So we don't have a chipper or a grinder or anything like that on site here, so we don't do a lot to try to make our compost like look perfect like you might get from a store or from a garden center. To keep the look of the beds, what we do is we lay down our own compost like this, and then we'll put an inch or so of finished compost from the store that kind of keeps the look of the garden bed. I actually don't mind putting twigs and stuff like that in the garden bed because, you know, as long as I don't necessarily want any big long thing like this, but the small stuff like that to me is fine. I think it creates more space and air pockets and things for things to move around in a bit. By things, I mean the microorganisms and worms and bugs and things that are good to have in your soil to begin with. All right, well, that may be all I can push in one go. So I'm gonna take this over to what was the pumpkin bed for this last year and dump it there. And that's how it goes. That's going to be a lot of wheelbarrow loads of compost that I build up here. This bed can go ahead and get another 6 inches to a foot tall just fine. And so this is going to be a great area for us to unload a lot of our compost. Yeah, so I'm going to get to it and I'll see you all in the next segment. Well, I figured out a different way to wash my pots. It's kind of one of those never-ending tasks in the fall. I'm washing out my pots and cell trays, getting it ready for next year. And typically, you may have seen me do this before. I get like a different kind of tub and I put the water in it and then I put some bleach in it and everything. And then I realized the other day, hey, I've got wheelbarrows. Why am I not just doing it that way? It's a lot easier to then turn around and empty the water and everything when I'm done. So yeah, I just wanted to share with you all my new method, which is not dramatically different, but I'm washing pots in the wheelbarrow. So same thing as you've seen me do before. The only difference is I put all the water in the wheelbarrow there, and then I put a little bit of bleach in there, and that's to kill the microorganisms and whatnot, and get a little bit of disinfectant. Throwing my pots in there, I'll let them soak for a minute or so, and then I'll take them out, let them dry, and then we'll store them, put them away for the next use, which you might think would be next year, but oddly enough, I'm actually doing a lot of planting right now. Perennial type stuff that can overwinter in the greenhouse and then be planted out next spring. So some of this stuff might go into immediate production right away. These little cell trays, whoa, with these little cell trays, I don't always wash them all out. Sometimes I just throw them straight into the tub, and that means there might be some caked on dirt when I'm done, but I assume with the bleach in there, it still kind of disinfects things anyway. A little bit, I mean, obviously I'm gonna put dirt in them eventually, so a little bit of dirt here and there doesn't hurt anything, but I'm spraying these out because they actually had a lot of, they happen to have a lot of dirt sitting in the bottom of them. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably a waste of time for me to sit here and spray these out, but it's just a feeling. Like I just feel like it feels better to not have them caked with dirt and throwing them in there. And there might be like a spider web or something in there I can squirt off. That one doesn't look bad, I can throw that in. But yeah, that's kind of gunky in there. Well, that's it. Just more fall garden chores that we're working through here at PDX Garden Home. Well, I'm back at it with the beets again. It's been a reliable crop this year for sure. Most of these were planted during the year, in the early spring, and then let go out for the whole season, and they have kind of grown to maturity at different times. They're not huge, but they're edible. And yeah, similar to the broccoli, the last major harvest I did of this was back at the end of August, and now we're mid-October, and I'm back here again. There might still be some time for some of these to mature more, and maybe I'll get another harvest in by late November. We'll see. They're somewhat cold hardy, but that doesn't mean they'll grow any between now and the end of November. Well, as always, I appreciate you guys joining us, and if you like the videos, please subscribe below and tell your friends and family about us, and yeah, keep on watching, and we'll be back with another video. Take care now. Bye.